Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to be covering how to play Nocturne top. Now, my reasoning for making a Nocturne guide, even though he is more of a niche top laner, is because he is a huge benefactor for the current patch. He uses some of the new runes well, the item changes from earlier, and he does extremely well in the current meta. So we're going to be covering how to play him, the best scenarios to pick him in, and this guide will be a little bit different than my in-depth, fully detailed 3-hour Camille movie type guides, where I'm going to be trying to simplify it, because he's quite a simple champion. He's great to have in your champ pool, so I'm going to be trying to create clear pathways for how to play him, and of course the best scenarios to pick him. So if that sounds good to you, then let's get it started. Hey everyone, if you're passionate about improving and leveling up your gameplay, I've been offering coaching classes for 5 days a week for quite some time, and just seen firsthand how much my students have been improving across all different elo brackets. How it works is you'll come to a class with a VOD like reviewed, and I'm going to help you with your early game, your mid game, or anything you feel like needs improving. And if you're unsure, then I'm going to steer you in the right direction by setting clear learning objectives. Link's going to be in the description, I hope to see you there, but if not, then enjoy the video. First up, we're going to be covering the runes and the summoner spells. Now I'm going to be putting some b-roll in the background, just some clips, and it shouldn't take too long because the runes and spells on Nocturne are extremely simple. You're going to be running the Conqueror page every single game no matter what. Of course, with the removal of lethal tempo, you don't have to pick and choose between a stronger early game or scaling. Conqueror is going to be the best choice, and on Conqueror you're going to be taking Triumph, Alacrity, and Last Stand. There's no reason to change out any of these. You could make the argument for Presence over Triumph, but the way you're going to be playing this champion, Triumph is going to give you a ton of value. Now, to make up for those mana costs you're going to be lacking, the Inspiration Tree with Cookies is going to help you a lot, but more importantly, a key rune, a huge reason why I believe Nocturne is good right now, is the Jack of all trades rune. Nocturne is a champion that can get the 10 stacks extremely quickly in the current meta with itemization, and we'll be covering that in the item section, but this rune allows you to spike extremely early on in the game. So I strongly recommend you take it. And that's coming from me, I'm a Cosmic Insight lover, but Jack of all trades on this champion just does extremely well, so I strongly recommend you run it. Now, as for the rune shards, attack speed, of course, adaptive force, and flat HP. The reason I recommend flat HP is because even without lethal tempo, you have an extremely strong level 1 to 3. So if you can use that, if you can get a great trade level 1, which leads into level 2 advantage, level 3, you're going to be able to pick up a lot of kills or great trades in your lane, and having that extra, bit of beef in the early game, an extra 55 HP, is going to help you a lot in that all-in. And as for your summoner spells, you're going to be taking Flash and Teleport every single game. Now Flash, of course, just OP, very standard. If you don't have it, you're probably going to get camped, and it's going to be very hard for you to hit your E on an opponent that has Flash. You're going to be wanting to have your own Flash to follow them so that you can guarantee that fair. And as for Teleport, the way you're going to be playing this champion, you're not really playing for the individual greedy, solo kill, stuff like that. You can 1 to 3, but generally as soon as you hit, level 6 onwards, you're going to be proxying, you're going to be getting around the map, and we'll cover how to do so later on, but Teleport is extremely beneficial for attacking the rest of the map, and we'll show a clip of it later on, but you can ulti to darken the screen, teleport, and then use your second charge of your ulti, so it's really hard for them to even see your TP coming. Really impactful spell on this champion, and I don't recommend going without it. However, if you are playing, and I'd say maybe gold and below, maybe plat 4 and below, and you don't really know how to use TP, maybe you're a Garen main, stuff like that, and you just love having Ignite, then you can feel free to take it, but I do recommend in the long run, TP is going to help you a lot in terms of your learning and your growth, because this champion's not going to be as impactful without it. Moving on to the item builds. Now in this iteration of Nocturne, building is extremely simple, but you do want to be keeping Jack of all trades in mind at all times. So with that being said, your starting item is going to be Doran's Blade, which gives you 3 stacks of Jack of all trades. However, you will need Doran's Shield in specific matchups such as Rumble or Jace, but if you are unsure and you think your matchup might be fine, definitely go Doran's Blade every time. And as for your first item, you do want to be getting a Tiamat as fast as you can, but it's really hard to get that on your first buy because your mana cost is so high, so you do generally just go 1 or 2 longswords and get that Tiamat on your next recall. But you really want to be rushing Tiamat so you can start to one-shot the wave and proxy, things of that nature, and we'll cover that more in the laning or the mid-game section, but for now you just want to be getting your Stride Breaker, your first item, as fast as you can. You don't want to be delaying it for boots unless it's very obvious that the boots are OP, so if they have, Gragas top and Sejuani jungle, of course Merc Treads are great in that game, but most of the time you do want to be getting that Stride Breaker as fast as possible because you spike extremely hard on that item. Now, the most efficient way to get Jack of all trades as fast as you can generally get around 12 to 14 minutes if you're having a good game, is Stride Breaker, Merc Treads, and Glacial Shroud. Once you have these 3 items with Doran's Blade, you'll have 10 stacks straight away and you spike really hard on this timer. Now with that Glacial Shroud, you're going to be upgrading it to Frozen Heart, of course, you're not just buying it for no reason, or you can sit on Glacial and go Kanik Rukin in games where you desperately need magic resist, but most of the time, Frozen Heart's such a cheap item, a lot of haste, great pickup as your second item. And there will be some exceptions, you can go Serpent's Fang, in games where you need the shield cut. Let's say you're snowballing and they have like a Janna or an Ivan, stuff like that, especially if they have two shielding champs, then Serpent's Fang will be a great pickup. But most of the time, your build will be Stridebreaker, Merc Treads, and Glacial for that insta Jack of all trades rush and just upgrading that Glacial into a Frozen Heart. Now, as for your third item, most of the time your build is going to be looking like Stridebreaker, Merc Treads, Frozen Heart, and Kano Rukin. It's a really heavy AP meta, so if they have strong AP jungle in mid, Kano can be a huge pickup, but if you're not versing that much magic damage, then you can go either Abyssal Mask if you have two AP champs on your team, maybe a Tilia jungle and a Hui mid, or maybe you have a Tilia that's like 10 kills and it can still be fine, or you can just completely skip a full MR item and go Juxtra the Protein. So that would be a scenario where maybe they have a solo AP Orianna, so a little bit of magic damage, but maybe just 0-1 with a tear, not that scary. Then in that case, you can go just Juxtra the Protein as your third item, and Serpent's Fang, of course, if you need the shield cut desperately, great pickup for you. Because if you don't have this item, and your verse maybe, let's say, Ash Janna or something like that, it can feel really hard to do any meaningful damage because of the shielding. And rounding off your build, if you have an armor item and an MR item at this point, I strongly recommend picking up Juxtra the Protein as your fourth item. Makes you feel pretty much unkillable, but there is a cheap alternative. Now, if you've got a big Baron fight coming up, you don't have that much gold, because most of the time on Nocturne you're not really greeding and side lane stuff like that, then you can actually pick up the Zeke's Convergence, and it makes your ulti feel extremely strong. So it's just a great cheap pickup for a bit of extra stats, and you can spike a lot earlier than having to save an extra 1,000 gold. And down the bottom, that's just what your full build is going to look like in the majority of your games. Of course, there will be exceptions if you need shield cut or heal cut. Maybe you need to stack armor or MR, depending on the game. Of course, you're going to run into scenarios like that. Maybe in a game where it's just AD carry and 3 AP topside, you sit on the Glacial Shroud and just get stack MR items at that point, just for the Glacial getting your Jack of all trades going. But generally, your build is going to look like this, and you're going to be playing more of a tank engage role in these team fights. And down the bottom is just the easiest way to get Jack of all trades stacked up as fast as possible, and in most games you should be aiming to do that if you can. Next up, we're going to be covering the laning phase, and before we dive into the actual laning aspect, I do want to emphasize how powerful this champion is level 1. Unless you're versed, the king like a Darius or something, you should be looking to abuse your champion's powerful level 1 to gain yourself an advantage. You can beat the majority of champions in an extended fight level 1, and if you get a great trade, that's going to lead to the level 2 advantage level 3, and you're going to also be able to pick up some solo kills along the way. So now that you've seen this, and I do recommend the level 1 guide I made recently if you don't really know how to use your level 1, that can help you, but generally that's what you should be looking for in the majority of your matchups. Moving on to the actual matchups, in this game I'm playing Nocturne up against a Gwen. So of course she does outscale me later on, and she can win trades at 6 onwards, but 1 to 3 is in my favor, so I want to be using it. So straight away you see I took over this bush, I'm trying to fight her level 1, if she leashes and comes back I'm going to cheese her, but she didn't of course, so I'm going to be looking to get a good trade regardless. So I ward this because I know I'm playing aggressive 1 to 3, so I don't want their jungler to come, ruin my good time, and I'm going to wait for the minion wave to settle down, completely go even, and then I'm going to be looking to attack. So now the wave is settled, I'm trying to get behind her level 1, she's also respecting, she knows it too, maybe doesn't know how powerful I am level 1, but now I'm going to be taking the fight. So hold on to my Q for a little bit, guarantee the hit, and I'm kiting back and forth a little bit, trying to bait her in, trying to bring her out from the tower, and now she's trying to juke my Q, so I'm just holding it. Hold on to your Q for that little extra second or two to guarantee that it's going to hit, and now already, boom, great trade, both her potions gone, we've already set the pace of the lane. And now I'm just going to be slowly pushing this wave, trying to crash wave 3. And you can see I've already picked my jungler. I let him know there is a great opportunity top. He doesn't have to take it, but I am giving him that option. And look, as you saw on my minimap, Viego is coming top. So exactly as I predicted, right? I'm going to be playing very aggressive 1 to 3, which means that jungler should come, but he saw me respecting, so now he's going away. So really good early game planned in this game, and it's something that you can replicate in a lot of your matchups. And now wave 3 is here, I'm going to be trying to get it in. Normally I'll just be getting this wave in extremely quickly, but I want to give my Lee Sin a little bit more time. So I decided instead of crashing wave 3, I'm going to slowly push it in, drag it out a little bit, and hope that Lee Sin has a timer to come up. But of course, the Korean Lee Sin's a very aggressive ganking mid on his way to ganking top, and I'm just slowing down my push, but I'm Nocturne, and I did push a little too fast early on, so unable to crash wave 4, and now I'm just chilling here, trying to push poke her down a little bit as well, getting Lee Sin involved, and even if Lee Sin didn't come for this dive, I would still proxy this wave in base. Nocturne's one of the best proxying champs in the game in top lane, but because my Lee Sin, wanted to kill, he came up top and we were able to easily kill. So that's a great point to keep in mind as well. Even if my jungler didn't listen, maybe you have a noob jungler pathing down on, Nidalee or something greedy like that, I would still proxy this wave because my ward gave me the information needed, and most of the time Viego will start top anyway, but I'd still proxy this wave and give myself a high tempo recall, come back, and be in a great position with that item advantage over Gwen. For our next matchup, we have a Korean challenger Nocturne top main, the guy who innovated the Jack of all trades tank build, playing up against Irel King on Irelia. So of course, insanely good mechanical player, so we're going to be seeing how he performs in the lane. Now, you can see he knows he's going to be playing aggressive 1 to 3, so he decides to ward the enemy jungle to make up for that, and I do recommend you being a bit earlier coming back to lane. I do believe he's too late, and you'll see why soon, but regardless of him being late, even though Aurelia got 4 stacks instantly, he still wins the level 1 trade, so just showcasing the power of Nocturne level 1, and even though he's late, he does get pushed, but the reason I wanted him to be there on time is because you can see they got level 2 at pretty much the same time, where if you come earlier, you can get level 2 with a bit of an XP gap and use that for a good trade against a player that's not really going to respect it, which should be, majority of the players below Diamond won't respect that level 2 very often in my experience, so you can look to utilize that. Now, generally, this guy doesn't really play for lane advantages. He will take a kill if it's presented to him, but generally he plays to impact the rest of the map. So I thought this would be a good example of how he does it so early in the majority of its games. Now, he decided to 3-wave crash, which I do strongly recommend on Nocturne. You don't really want to be 2-waving on this champ, unless you get a massive trade in response. Now, the reason you don't want a 2-wave is because if he 2-wave crashed here, the wave bouncing back, Aurelia could get level 3 before him, and then take an extended trade, level 3 versus 2 with a minion gap, and it would be very hard for him to deal with. So really good of him to 3-wave crash, and in some matchups, and on a lot of champions, you want to be allowing the wave to come back towards you, so that you can play for a solo kill here. But he doesn't often play like that. He generally keeps his opponent pinned under tower, and looks for options around the map. And this game is no exception. Even if he let the wave come back in, Aurelia could probably brute force this wave in anyway, so a lot of it is matchup specific. If he versus a champ that was way weaker than him early game, like a Kale or something, he probably would let the wave come back and play for a kill, but generally he likes to keep his opponent pinned under tower and play to attack the rest of the map. So unfortunately here there is a bit of mid gap, so he has to trade 1 for 1, but what he does after is what is most important for me. So he TPs back to lane, and again, he's going to be looking to keep Aurelia shoved under tower and secure himself a recall whenever he wants. So unlucky on the Q there, not able to pick up the kill, and now no intention of letting the wave come back towards him. Constantly shoving this wave and playing for push, and in a lot of games you can start to proxy, you can start to attack the jungle, especially at level 6 with Tiamat. That's kind of your first big timer to start to impact the game, 6 and Tiamat, and as you'll see here on his next base, he's going to pick up a Tiamat. So picking up his Tiamat, rushing as fast as he can, and coming back to lane, and now it's time for him to start to attack the rest of the map. So exactly what we're going to see soon. One shot the wave, I'll speed it up a little bit. But now, he has no intention of playing for an individual advantage over this Irelia. He purely wants to be attacking the rest of the map, which is the mindset you want to be having on this champion. There's a little bit scared of Vi there, you can see by his body language, but now he's going to one-shot this wave and then look to roam around. So look how powerful the trading is on this champ, but you don't really want to be using it for a kill, especially in this timer. He wants to be using it to impact the rest of the map. So roaming down here, picking up the fruit on the way, and now he's going to be looking to utilize that global ultimate. So you'll see shortly, the way he plays the skirmish was also impressive, where he pops ulti now to deny vision and deny mid TP potentially, but he doesn't pop R2 straight away. Of course they're in melee range, so he just keeps bashing them down, he holds on to R2 and then uses it at the last second now because he assumed Aurelia might flash away. One that might flash, and you have to follow, but this champion just has insane early skirmishing potential, push and move, constantly looking for plays, ganks, mid skirmishes, stuff like that. That's generally how you want to be playing your laning phase. You can see how strong this champ is, even though he has, a really weak clipped first strike brand early game, versus, 2 bruises via an Irelia. His champion just makes up for that difference in power. And now that he's snowballed, he can really start to take over the game. So I'll play out one more sequence. He comes back to lane. He picked up Phage and Dagger. So like we said, even though Tabbies is objectively great this game, he wants to be getting the stride breaker as fast as he can. And also Tabbies will ruin his jack of all trades, where not worth it in my opinion. So takes down his ward, gets down his ward, and now he's going to be looking to fight straight away. So you can see full HP Irelia, spell shields the E, and just completely tower dives him and just one-shots him under tower here. So really powerful champ if you can get a lead, and you want to be getting that lead by just shoving your opponent under tower, maybe proxying, but really looking to push and move, and get involved in the game as fast as you can. So I'll show one more example of exactly what we're talking about, getting involved as early as you can. Now, in this game, I'm playing Nocturne up against Teemo. I'm a little bit behind at this point from a little bit of jungle gap, we're going to say. And I'm going to be looking to use my first ulti and also my TP to get involved with the rest of the map. So here, just looking to shove under tower. And as you can see, I can hit him and have my Q for the extra AD to clear the wave at the same time. And now I'm going to be looking to base and get more involved. So the reason I base here, even though it's a pretty bad lane state for me, look at what's happening bot on the minimap. A lot of action, a lot of kills being traded, so I want to be getting involved here. This is how you want to be playing your champion. You don't want to be very greedy in your lane, so I TP back at minute 8 to bot lane, pop my ulti very shortly, and I'm able to get involved in the skirmish. So you can see the mindset you need to have on this champion is not going to be individual greed. Of course, there are going to be times where you can just stomp your lane 1v1 and win that way, especially if you're in a matchup that's quite easy, but generally you want to be using your powerful global ulti and your TP to get around the map, use your really good wave clear to make it so you don't lose as much. On this time my buy was kind of ugly every time, I couldn't get a Tiamat. You see I've got Phage, so I didn't have the luxury of a Tiamat wave one shot, but I was still looking to get involved with the rest of the map and change the outcome of these early skirmishes. Moving on to abilities, tips and tricks, and comboing. Now, the first tip is going to be a pretty standard one on Nocturne. You can use every single one of your abilities while you're in midair of your ulti. So the most important one is going to be the Q and the W. You can Q while you ulti. If you time it right, your Q is going to hit when you land, and you're going to get the bonus AD on that landing. So really important that you master the timing of that Q while ulting, and W can be great for if you're flying in and you don't want to get hit by a key crowd control ability straight away. You can get your W primed, let's say a Hui fires an ulti or a W, something like that, then you can get your W on. And the E early, it's not as mandatory, but you can get that fear down just that little half a second faster. Now you can also stride break while ulting, so you can prop that stride break active while you're in the air, and slow them before your character even lands. Now, when you're standing on your Nocturne Q, you're going to be getting a lot of bonus attack damage. So of course it's very useful for trading and, wave clear, everything like that, but it's also really good when hitting towers. So if you can use your Q while bashing the tower to give yourself extra AD, and you're either going to be queuing backwards so that if somebody appears and tries to stop you from taking tower, you have a bit of extra movement speed to get away, or you can just queue the upcoming wave for a bit of extra wave clear as well, but you want to be utilizing that bonus AD while trying to break tower plates. Now, a good tip for Nocturne's E is it's going to follow and fear somebody even if they are untargetable. So if they're in their Zhonya's, the Elise E, Xayah R, even Master EQ, all of these stasis effects where they're untargetable, the E is still going to be channeling and it's still going to fear them when they come out of it, which is extremely beneficial against the majority of the champions and, items that I just listed. Now, when somebody is feared from your E, they are going to be running away from you, so you want to be using that to your advantage when you're getting a fear on an opponent in more of a group setting. So you want to be using your E more so like an insect, so once you have stride break it, this makes it 10 times easier, but you want to be running past your opponent, run through them while you're Eing them, so that they get feared back towards your own teammates. Now, as for your ultimate, and we did touch on this a little bit in the summer spell section, but you could cast your ultimate to black out their vision, TP in, so they won't be able to see your TP, and then use your second cast of ultimate to fly in, which is extremely powerful and very hard to play against, because if you start TPing, your opponent can TP follow, or they can see you coming and react to it, but if you are and then TP, nobody can follow, nobody can, catch up to you and get there first with their global, so you can just RTP R2 and get that fight going with that numbers advantage. So another tip for your ultimate, I don't really see a lot of Nocturnes do this, especially those greedy jungle players, is using your ulti purely for the vision denial. A lot of Nocturnes use their ulti purely for their dive, which of course is a big part of it, flying on in, but the vision denial can be really impactful, because as top laner, it's really hard to be involved in every single skirmish. So if there's a big play happening bot, maybe your team is diving the enemy bot lane, you could use your ulti to block the opponent from being able to TP and counter gank. So maybe they have like a Galio or a Lissandra mid looking to TP, or your lane opponent pushes you under tower and they back out looking to TP, you can use your ulti to purely block that and cause a lot of confusion for the enemy team. You can also use your ultimate to completely nullify crowd control. So let's say you don't have your spell shield, you're about to get hit by a hook or something like that, you can fly on in, block that thresh hook, maybe even a Malphite ulti, Alistair combo, anything really, as long as you start your ulti before it hits you, you're going to be completely unstoppable to that CC. And the last tip for your ulti, you can use it not just to go in, but also to escape danger. So if you're caught out, your ulti, of course, you're going to be unstoppable while you're traveling. So if there's an opponent that's far away, late to the fight, or on a different position in the fight, you can just relocate yourself and escape that fight by using them more of a gap close, kind of like a ward jump, but the more extreme version. And a good way to secure solo kills in lane is seeing your ultimate more as a two-step process. So you run towards your opponent if they have a gap closer with your Q and auto attacks and bait out the Camille, the Kennedy, spells like that. Walk back towards your wave, and most likely they'll fall into your body language bait, walk back towards the wave, and then you can ulti in when they don't have their gap closer up and secure yourself an easy kill. Now, as for your comboing, Nocturne doesn't really have a lot of combos. His champion's pretty straightforward, but your main combo is going to be R into Q, W, Stride Breaker, E, and then just commit a lot of auto attacks. So the way you're going to be doing it, you're going to be flying in with your second R, Q while you're in the air, maybe even W while you're in the air, Stride Breaker just before you hit them as well, so your Q and Stride will hit them before you even land. You can E as well before you get that. That's pretty hard to do Q, Stride, and E while in the air, so generally you can land and E, just as you're landing, and then commit a bunch of auto attacks and maybe even flash after them if you feel like they're going to flash, but generally your combo is going to look a little something like that. Next up, we're going to be covering the mid game, and the mid game is pretty straightforward on Nocturne. You just want to be removing side lane, so neutralizing side wave, and looking for a play on mid or a neutral objective with your ultimate. So you can see he TP's back top, he's just going to insta-kill this wave and look for a play on mid. No interest in hitting Shin, no interest in hitting the tower, insta-kill the wave and look for a play. So if you play this champion, it's very important that you track the location of the mid wave. So you can see he's fogging down, and if you watch the minimap, you see mid wave is coming in, so he's looking for a play on this wave. So I'm going to turn it to his vision shortly, and you'll see he has no idea where the AD carry is, so he's waiting to see if they're contesting mid push. And because he's not, straight back to side, one shot the wave and do the same thing all over again. You can see you insta-kill the wave with Q passive and Stride Breaker, and now he's looking for a play around mid. So just standing here, waiting patiently, he felt like they weren't going to contest it, they were playing quite safe, but then he saw they were the Tarek's playing a bit too high up, so he kind of felt by their body language that they're going to contest this mid push, so he came in, and, as you can see, they are contesting mid prior, so he comes in, and he's able to punish them for trying to get pushed. So if you play this champion the correct way with the mid game macro, it's really hard for the enemy team to get mid push and make a play. You can see they tried to use Herald here, but he was ready to punish straight away when they went for their mid push, and they were able to win a skirmish and break down this mid tower. Now, the next point to this mid-game macro is once you've made your play, that's it, right? Nocturne is mainly based around your ulti, starting that fight and getting in there, but once you're done, the play needs to be done straight away, and you need to go back to side, or base and go back to side as fast as you can. And you can see, no exception here, the second that fight was done, he's not helping his team hit mid or anything like that, instantly back to side, no interest in extending the play any longer than it needs to be. I'll show one more example of myself playing Nocturne in the mid game with a bit of a different circumstance. So you can see here, in theory, I want to be going top, pushing in that wave breaking tower, but on Nocturne, it's better to look for a proactive play. My ulti's up in 40. If I go all the way top, crash that wave, maybe even get the tier 1, and then go mid, it's going to be a little bit too slow, and there is a lot of action happening on the map. If the map was a bit more passive, I would have gone top and got the wave in and waited for my ulti, of course, but my wave's already pushed out, so my wave's already neutralized, so there's no urgency for me to respond to it. So I hover around here in case a fight breaks out, and now I'm going to be looking mid to punish. There's no reason for me to go top, except for, being greedy, trying to get extra farm, extra towers, which can be good in some scenarios, but in this game their bot lane is carrying, it's up to me to shut her down, so I'm going to be looking to punish her on every mid wave. So you can see my ulti's just coming up, I'm really min-maxing it, and this is a great pick with Nocturne, we have an Ashe as well, and we're able to kill this Jinx. So we're able to shut her down because she contested mid push. If she respected it and sat under tower and let my bot lane that got shit on in lane, get push, I would have gone back to side and I would have been looking to repeat the process all over again. But you can see you don't always have to go straight to side and get your wave out. If your wave's already neutral or it's already pushed into them and you don't really have a reason to go there, you can play more so to attack the enemy team, and you want to be prioritizing that over playing for yourself in the side. And one last point for the mid game, keep in mind you don't always need to tunnel on that one concept of remove side, look for a play on the enemy team. Nocturne is quite versatile. You can maybe lane gank for your mid laner, you can make plays on side. You're still going to be a strong duelist, especially in games where you get ahead. You can look for proactive plays on side as well. So after I kill this Teemo, you see the TF tries to punish me, but I can still make a proactive play on him. I've got my ulti, the wave's not really urgent, but instead of looking mid, I can punish this, immobile mage champion from hitting side. And in a different game, it might be an Orianna or a Syndra going side, and I can look for a play like this. So you don't always have to tunnel on attacking, the AD carry and making him sad on mid. You can also punish those immobile, mid lane champs in the side lane as well. Next up, we're going to be covering team fighting. Now, in terms of executing your team fight on Nocturne, it's very straightforward, probably the easiest part of the champion, so I'm not going to be breaking down examples of someone flying in, killing the AD carry and taking damage. I'm mainly going to be showing that stuff in the background and talking you through 3 main rules that I want you to follow for having success in team fights. Now, the first rule, and the most important in my opinion, is prioritizing skirmishing or numbers advantage team fights over the pure 5v5. Now, if your team's just completely stomping, of course, feel free to start up that Baron and 5v5, but if the game's more even or slightly losing or slightly ahead, try to use the fact that you have a long-range engage ultimate, and especially with the tank build, you're a really good engage, to create a numbers advantage situation, so neutralize that side, and pay close attention to the map. You want to be seeing if the support is basing for wards or the enemy mid laner is greeting for a wave, things of that nature, and trying to create a numbers advantage. Attack the AD carry, at a timer when you know he doesn't have his team grouped up with him, where if you're just coming out into the map after basing and the enemy team hasn't died in a while and you don't see them on the map, maybe not the best time to engage, they might be all nearby. Where if you neutralize a wave, see somebody answer, or you see the jungler maybe just solo a dragon and the AD carry's pushing mid, things of that nature where you can look to create a numbers advantage scenario is going to be very beneficial for your champion. So to compare him to a champ that wants to have a kind of similar, mindset, but it's not as easy for them. Let's say Aatrox. You want to be removing side and looking for a play. Let's say your spikes, you've got your Eclipse, and you're looking to carry while you're really strong, but you one-shot the wave and you walk down mid. Maybe they see you on a ward, or they see you coming out of the bush and they just walk away slowly. It's going to be really hard for you to execute on your champion unless they have a clear incentive, for Dragon or Herald or something like that, or if they're just playing too aggressive on mid. Where Nocturne does not have that issue because your engage is so long, you can remove the wave and you're already pretty much halfway down river when you can reach AD carry, and especially level 11 or 16, your range is going to be so long, it's going to be so easy for you to engage, but you need to be paying close attention on the map to make sure you have that numbers advantage. Now, the second rule, and this one is more straightforward, you want to be ulting onto the immobile carries, the champs that really struggle to disengage against you. So this is a great champ to practice tracking flashes on as well, because if there's no flash, that makes it 10 times more tasty for you to fly on in and punish them. So if you see champs like Syndra, or champs like Ashe, champs like Jhin, really good targets for you. Where comparing it to a champ like Talon or a champ like, Zeri, if Zeri's near a wall, they can just fly or, jump away when you engage onto them, so it's not going to be as valuable. Now, the third rule, it might contradict the second one a little bit, but you want to be fearing the highest priority target. So let's say they have a Jhin, but he's 0-4, he got smashed in lane, you probably don't want to be committing your E onto him, which is your second highest impact spell in a team fight, where maybe they have a 3-0 Gwen or a Camille, or maybe, the Lee Sin got quite fed, he has Eclipse and Sundered Sky, he's really strong, maybe you want to commit your fear onto him instead. Of course not if he's got all of his abilities up, he just kicks you away or, W's in, but if he insects your team with W flash ulti something, and you see him in the middle of your team, and he's really strong, maybe it might be better to commit your fear onto him, than onto, the 0-4 backline. So don't always tunnel on one-shotting the AD carry, even though it's the most fun thing to do, especially if they're behind and really weak in the game. You want to be fearing, because it's quite a long CC and really hard for them to get the most out of their champion. You want to be using that spell on the highest impact champ in that team fight. For our final section of the guide, we're going to be covering when is the best time to play this champion. What are you going to be watching out for in Champion Select to know if Nocturne's going to be a great pick this game, or if maybe you should just pick something else. Now, in my opinion, Nocturne's a great champ to add to your pool for two reasons. For starters, he's quite easy to play, so it's easier to add to your champ pool than other champs, but also he makes up for a big weakness that I see in a lot of players' champion pools, and that is a lack of hard engage. Where generally if you want a hard engage to shut down these strong, long range mages or AD carries, you want to be playing champs like Malphite or Sion or Ornn, where not only are these champions not as fun to play for certain players, but also you have a weaker laning phase, you have a lot less carry potential because you are playing a tank, so Nocturne can be a great filler in that type of spot where you want to be hard engaging. And another scenario where you want to be picking a good champ into long range, you could play a champ like Jace, who also has a long range poke, but Jace is really hard to play compared to other champs. He's quite hard to add to your pool, and also if you try to blind pick Jace, even if you see, oh, they've got a Hui and a Ashe, my champ's going to be quite good, they might pick, a Malphite top and they've got Rek'Sai jungle, stuff like that. Jace is a quite risky blind pick, where Nocturne is not that bad a blind, and if you see a lot of strong, long range mage comps, you can really get a lot of value in that game. Now, in terms of the champions on your own team that you want to be seeing, and I will show some examples later on what you want to see and avoid, the champs you want to be seeing on your team is going to be some sort of follow-up. So you can either have a dive buddy like a Xin Zhao, Hecarim, maybe a Kai'Sa or Samara, that's going to be fine, or you just want some sort of follow-up in the form of long-range damage. So if you have a Karthus jungle or a Rumble jungle, and they just follow up your engage with their ulti, that's going to be more than enough. You just need a bit of extra help because you are the tank build, you don't do that much damage, but with a Calf Assault, maybe some long range skill shots, or an Ashe or Varus engaging for you with their ulti, and you've, on the AD carry mid, and you fly on in, that's going to be more than enough to help you. You just want to avoid playing Nocturne with champs like Janna, Janna with a Aphelios or something like that, and they can't really benefit you whatsoever. Now, in terms of the enemy team, We already touched on it, but that's going to be the most important time when you're playing Nocturne. Strong, range mage champs generally, mobile champs, Nocturne's going to have a ton of value. So if you see champs like Xerath or Hui, which are generally quite hard to get onto for a lot of top lane champs, you can really punish them, but specifically the jungle meta. Right now, the jungle meta, a lot of champs running around like Karthus or Brand or Lilia, are really hard to deal with if you play a lot of top lane champs. So champs like Jackson, even Fiora, can really struggle into these really strong AP junglers that are over leveled right now, let's be real. But Nocturne can actually do very well into them. You can hard engage, block a big spell with your spell shield, and really, build MR as well, where you can't really build MR that easily on a lot of other carry tops. But Nocturne Stride Breaker into full tank, you're good to go, and you can really have a lot of value in games like that where they have strong, backline champs. And as for the times where you don't want to be playing Nocturne, it's going to be into comps with a lot of disengage or mobility. So if you see champs like Braum, Janna, Xayah, Tristana mid, champs like that, it can be really hard to get a lot of value in their game because they can completely disengage you when you go in or just completely, lock you down with CC and blow you up. So I'm going to be showing some examples of comps you do want to be having. So in this example, this is going to be a great game for Nocturne, and a little, combo with the Fiddlesticks is if you, turn off the lights with your ulti, Fiddlesticks is going to get his AoE fair down with his ult. Really good combo, but generally just want champs that go in with you, or champs that can follow you up with long range spells. And you can see the enemy team, Aatrox matchup, not that hard. You can just proxy against him later on when he gets a bit stronger, and you win really hard the 1-3. And Nidalee, not that much threat. Xerath, Jinx, really squishy and mobile backline. And Karma, no real disengage there. They're mainly playing Karma to win the lane. And although it does have a little bit of shielding, you can pick up a Serpent's Fang later on if you want. But even, Karma's shielding is negligible compared to like a Janna Q ulti shield type of disengage. So in this type of comp, you would have a lot of value. And for our second example, you can see it's not going to be as good. Lilia can kite you around quite easily, even though you are better into Lilia than a lot of other top lane champs. But champs like Xayah, champs like Tristana, Janna, as we just talked about, really hard for you to get a lot of value, and really strong side laning champs can easily kill you inside because you have no real escape if you don't get a lead. So not only can they pressure you inside, if they keep you stuck under the tower, and if you try to ult away they break your tier 2, it's going to be a lot harder to have value in their game. And you can see by your own team, champs like Victor, champs like Aphelios and Thresh, very useless, not much follow-up at all. So you really want to be avoiding playing Nocturne in games like that. But I would prioritize seeing what the enemy team's playing over your own one, because even if your own team's playing Karthus, you're like, nice, that sounds good. He might just play bad 0-4, no real good follow-up there. So you mainly want to be looking at the enemy team and seeing if you're going to have a lot of value before you look to pick this champion. Alright everyone, that's it for now. Feel free to let me know down in the comments how you felt about this more short version of a guide for more of a pocket pick champion. I really wanted Nocturne to be the first one on this type of video because he's a pocket pick I've had for a while now. I really like him in the metas where he feels good, and this meta is no exception, so I hope you at least give him a try. And other than that, I'll see you guys next time.